Welcome to Master B2B, the world's first and only unwebinar series. It's a debate style format where we're taking on key issues for manufacturers and distributors in B2B e-commerce. My name is Brian Beck. I'm thrilled to be joined again today by Andy Hoare, my partner in this thought leadership effort here. And Andy, for those of you who don't know him, is a longtime expert. CEOs have him on speed dial all over the world on issues of digital transformation, e-commerce. He spent 7 years running the B2B e-commerce practice at Forrester Research. He's the CEO of Paradigm B2B. Andy, welcome.
Yeah, great to be here. This is going to be a great conversation. We're talking about AI. It's a hot topic. Glad to be joined again today by Brian Beck. For those who don't know Brian, he is a 20-year veteran. He's been a practitioner on the B2C side and the B2B side. He's been a consultant. He's a thought leader. He's a partner on this. He's kind of an action figure at this point. So maybe pretty soon you can order him in like a little rubber action figure guy. Also the author of a book called $1 Billion B2B E-commerce, which I highly recommend reading. And before I turn it back to you, Brian, I do want to mention something very quickly. We have a big announcement for Master B2B at the end of the show, and you're going to want to stick around for this. So back to you, Brian.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got some exciting stuff happening. So stick around, folks, through the end of the session today. And for those of you who haven't joined us before, this is a different format. This is not a webinar. We call this an unwebinar, and we do that for a reason because we're really flipping the webinar format on its head. We do have a sponsor today, that's Bloom Reach, but we have, they're subject to the same tough questions our practitioners are. We have two teams of excellent, fantastic practitioners. We call them contenders because they're going to get in the ring and fight about whether AI is changing the game in personalization or not for B2B. So we'll get into that in just a moment. We do want to hear from you. We want to hear from you in the Q&A box here. We took some questions in advance from you. Thank you for submitting those. We have 3 rounds today, folks. At the end of each of those rounds, you get a chance to vote on the winner of that round. And at the end of the session today, we will reveal the winner of the debate. So stick around for that in addition to the exciting announcements we have coming. So thank you. So Andy, today, another hot topic. We're talking about artificial intelligence as you related to. Will it impact the future of B2B commerce and how will it? Is it here today? Is it a fad or is it really driving results today? We're going to find it out. And our entire B2B ecosystem is back here again today. I'm just looking again at it's kind of some of the folks who are logging in here. I see there's Billy from Haynes Supply is here. Waters Corp is here. Zorro's here. I see Mike Becker's here from Kimberly Clark. We've got Kyle Hilbrenner from Partstown is here. Kurt from Avnet. It's even have some folks here from MSC out in force to support one of our contenders, Andy. So we'll introduce Fossil in just a minute. And as usual, 3M is all here. So the question we asked, we post as we always do in these things, and those folks who follow us, on LinkedIn and social media, we asked this question on LinkedIn last week. We asked, is artificial intelligence going to forever change personalization and loyalty in B2B commerce? And Andy, the floodgates opened as usual, right? We had 3,000 views, likes, shares, comments. And, interesting what I found, I was surveying the results yesterday, Andy, I was reading through this and, not a single practitioner commented in the post that they had AI completely figured out. There was a lot of comments about it, how people are using it at different stages of the journey. A good example is Ricardo Caruso, one of our practitioner heroes. He's running digital commerce at life sciences manufacturer Cepheid. Ricardo said, in the past 5 years, AI has not been applicable to a point of being worth the investment. In the life sciences industry, which is Ricardo's industry, he said, there is not enough data to feed AI with multiple channels and multiple roles. Once you are looking at a specific segment, the data size is not enough for AI to be effective. Wow. So, that's one perspective. And we're going to hear a couple of other perspectives as we go through the debate today. So Andy, the question is AI changing the game for B2B personalization? Andy, what is personalization? Can you talk about it a little bit? I know you have some stuff prepared for us here.
Yeah, we're going to show a few slides. So one good thing about personalization in B2C and B2B, and we're going to talk about B2B today, is that it's fairly incontrovertible that it works. So you see on the screen here a couple of data points. So Epsilon said 80% of shoppers, buyers, what we want to call them, are more likely to buy from a company that offers personalized experiences. So that's pretty clear, unambiguous there. And then 77% of consumers, but I think same thing kind of applies to buyers in B2B, have chosen, recommended, or paid more for a brand that provides a personalized experience. That's compliments of our friends there at Forrester. This one's particularly interesting because it says paid more. So there's an incrementality option here for personalization, but I don't think anybody disputes that personalization works. The question we're going to debate today is artificial intelligence here today? And is it going to, if it is or isn't, is it going to significantly impact personalization going forward? There's a couple schools of thought on this one. Gartner did a study in the last 2 years, and when they talked to people who are on the ground every day thinking about AI, they said, "Hey, do you think this is going to be a game changer?" And fully a third of digital leaders are saying that AI is going to truly be a game changer for their organization. Question is how? And so, some of the standard kind of usual suspects you'll see is, and this is what organizations are reporting now, how they're using AI. I circled a few here just to kind of highlight the point. Customer segmentation, a really big one. It's better than, doing these things in non-real time. So if you've got AI that's able to organize segments around buying habits, that's really powerful. Product recommendations, kind of a no-brainer. And then, of course, keyword search. And as Jason from Bloomreach will talk about today, they're all in on that one. But, I think it's pretty clear that AI can really help for personalization in terms of recommendations and product search. But I actually believe that would be to undervalue what AI is capable of, because in the same study, they talked about other areas beyond just pure personalization where AI is really having an impact. And you can see just a couple here. One is like product categorization. Well, if you know what somebody wants, you can start categorizing products around their buying habits. And other things that you may not think as much about, more on the supply side, the back end, things like fraud detection, marketing automation. These are things where AI is also having an impact. So it's going to be fairly pervasive, but all roads lead back to today, personalization. As you can see, digital leaders are saying that AI and personalization is going to help them grow revenue. Now we'll talk about incrementality and other things at some other point, but there's a strong feeling that AI is going to help grow revenue through personalization. That all said, it is entirely possible that even the Gartner study, which seems a bit, maybe a bit more ambitious and forward-looking, maybe undercounting what AI is really going to do. This is one of my favorite quotes. Kai-Fu Lee is one of the recognized experts in the world. He worked at Microsoft, Google. He has a whole venture capital group around AI. He wrote a book recently, and he said that by 2033, which is now just about 10 years away, AI and automation will be able to do 40 to 50% of all work. Now, try squaring that circle with where we are today. If he's right, then we're way behind, right? And this is what we're going to debate today. And it's also the case, and McKinsey talked about this as well, that as of last year, in the middle of the pandemic, and I think this has probably accelerated since then, 2/3 of B2B buyers prefer remote human interactions or digital self-service. We have all been weaned off of talking with sales reps to get all the best deals and all the best information. Now it's a lot of times more convenient and arguably a better, more value-added experience to do so on your own. AI could take this to a whole new level. But, and this is a big but, and we're going to talk about this today, and this is sort of my final point, all this is predicated on good data. If you don't have good data, you're not going to have anything. And so we're going to go really dig deep into that here in a few minutes. But let me toss it back to you now, Brian.
Yeah, no, it is good points. You just can't leave that death of a salesperson argument alone, can you? Boy, you keep coming back to that. I remember that piece you did. What was it, 6-7 years ago now at Forrester? So and I think the thing I noticed about the Forrester data as you were going through it is, gosh, you're talking about personalization being impactful, but it doesn't also say necessarily how it's being delivered or necessarily that AI needs to deliver that. And I think some of our contenders today will argue that there are some foundational things that can be done prior to AI that deliver better value. But we'll talk about that. So you're kind of getting a sense for where I'm leaning today. So we're going to go ahead and get this is a debate. So we need teams. So we're going to get our folks introduced here. So I'm leaning towards the team, what's called team evolutionary. And we're going to argue that this is really an evolution into AI. AI hasn't fully arrived today for e-commerce, except in some cases. And we're going to talk through those things. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce my team, Andy. My first contender is Fossil Haymaker Hussein. Fossil, I am so excited you're on this team. So let me introduce you a bit here. His specialty is hauling in mounds of moolah. Wow, that's the forte of the Haymaker. That's pretty good. He's the VP of Global E-commerce at $3 billion distributor MSC Industrial. A few of you have sure heard of MSC. They're a leader in their space. And he hasn't succumbed to that success level by succumbing to facile trends. He says AI holds promise to transform B2B commerce, but it just isn't there yet. Fossil, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
All right, bring it on. Doug, our next contender is Doug, the troublemaker Topkin. Doug, you're gonna make there he is. He's making trouble already. He swiftly terminates terrible tactics. That's what the troublemaker does. Wow. As the B2B e-commerce product owner at the world's largest swimming pool equipment and supplies distributor, Pool Corp, Doug knows what really to focus on what matters. And guess what? He says it isn't AI. He said most B2B companies are missing the boat on the fundamentals. Don't waste your time on AI. Wow. Doug, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here. Looking forward to this.
Awesome. You want to introduce your team there, Mr. Revolutionary?
Yeah, I do actually. And I've got Brooke and the Borg, and it's not a radio call-in show. And you'll see here in a second that Jason's actually in character for this one. So the Borg has come dressed as the Borg. So for those of you who buy your little weapons, your little show weapons, you're messing with the real deal here. But let me introduce Brooke first. So Brooke Lights Out Logan is the director of e-commerce at $16 billion automotive distributor Genuine Parts Company. You guys know one of their company's brands is Napa Auto Parts. They have several others. Let's see, Brooke knows the power of AI and we'll put the evolutionists, as we call them, in their place. She says, B2B companies that put off investing in AI are risking their very future relevance to customers. Those are strong words. So Brooke, welcome.
Thanks. Glad to be here, guys.
And the Borg, who needs no introduction at this point, you can just look at him and determine that he is, in fact, the Borg. We actually say the Borg is back. He was on one of our webinars last year and dispatched with the other team pretty ably, so we decided to bring him back. After arguing that machines will replace many human tasks in our man versus machine on webinar, Bloom reached his principal B2B visionary and founding Amazon business team member, which is also important, will return to argue that AI has in fact arrived. Jason says AI is critical all-in investment right now for B2B companies, and it generates real, measurable results. And this is good because this is actually our first round. So welcome, Jason the Borg.
Thank you, Whore Unit. Beck Unit, I am very excited to watch you try to present your flawed point of view and burn it with the cold, hard truth of reality.
Excellent. Well, Borg, we're thrilled to have you, and I love it. Sorry, you're cracking me up, man. I love it. All right. Well, I think it's about that time, guys. We got to get into the debate. So here we go. Let's rumble. All right, Andy, you have round one, sir. I'll keep time.
Yeah, we're getting right to the heart of the matter. We're going to talk about whether AI and B2B personalization is real or hype. So first question, is AI producing measurable results for personalizing B2B experiences today? We're going to go to Team Evolutionary first. Faisal, this is yours. Go.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, so I'm not sure about the results, but let's just talk about AI, right? What do you need for AI before you can even get to the results? So I think the biggest challenge today that in the space of B2B that I see is you don't have enough data to actually solve for the use cases, right? So you are still trying to figure out the customer behavior, the click stream, the transactional data, the data warehouses, the single source of truth, because you have too many of them. right? So if you have that kind of an infrastructure where you're slicing and dicing pockets of information, how are you going to apply that to the AI, right? And it also depends what your point of view is on personalization. Personalization is not just saying, hello, Faisal, welcome. You bought this from us and this is going to get delivered. It's more than that in the world of B2B, right? It depends on the persona of, are you an office manager? Are you just, an architect or an engineer whose job is to just come and find drill bits and add it to cart and leave, or define a solution?
Well, Doug, let's get you in on this one too. So the troublemaker, what say you?
Totally hype. So many companies are lacking in the fundamentals, right? Let's start at the beginning, get the fundamentals down. I equate it to so many kids today, they can't even tell time on an analog clock. They don't even know what time is, without their iPhone. Let's get to the fundamentals and learn the basics. And of course, I agree 100% with my teammates' point about the data. The data is still lacking. It's hype. All roads, Andy, as you said, lead back to today. And today, it's hype.
Well, I'm a little worried you may have angered the Borg. So, Jason, I know you've demasked, probably to protect the innocent here. But you probably have a different opinion on this one. AI has arrived, right?
Absolutely, it has, Andy. I mean, the truth of the matter is that I think the issue with AI to this point is that the tools that have been available for companies to actually deploy it have been pretty rudimentary. So to say that AI is now and will always be, destined to be just incremental wins is comparable to going back to, the invention of the automobile and saying that, oh, well, clearly you'd be better off with a horse as you sit there on the side of the road. But the reality is that the tools that are out there today are significantly more advanced than what was available even 3, 4, 5 years ago. And companies that are deploying this, B2B companies, are seeing real measurable results. 16% increase in revenue from search for HD supply, 4% increase in add to cart rates. But it's not just the financial metrics, it's also the organizational metrics. The fact that it takes teams so much less time to find and fix problems. Those are all things that we are seeing in the space now. And I think it's time. And that's what we're here to talk about.
Brooke, get in here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've seen it, right? We have the data. We know that across the funnel, whether it's in return visitors, higher add to cart rates, higher AOV, higher conversion, the data is there. And I think it's really important to remember that it's only going to get bigger results as the AI learns and time progresses, right? So if you don't get started now collecting that data and using that data, you're going to get so far behind that you can't ever catch up, right? And that's a real risk to the business. I think that continuing to say that, oh, we don't have enough data, that's a big excuse. Start getting the data and incrementally learn that way, right? Start using what you have and get better and train the AI over time.
So, Brian, I heard the question was about measurable results. I heard actual measurable results from our team. I'm not sure I heard that from the other team in the other direction, but we'll let that live for right now. So I want to go back to you, Brooke.
Aren't any, Andy?
I want to go back to you, Brooke, for a moment. So one of the criticisms people have about AI is that it's limited to site search and personalization. We showed a slide at the beginning indicating that that's not true, but what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's totally false. It's 1,000% not site search and recommendations. That's a component, yes. But I can, again, think of examples to use AI at really every point of the shopping funnel. So whether that's with content and email journey, search recs, predictive pricing, or maybe in the B2B world, it's insights that you're surfacing to your customers to help them run their businesses, right? That's AI, and that's super sticky. And you can get really creative here with the data that you have available and how you use that really intelligently and at scale.
Yeah, and I think there's also stuff in the supply chain. But Jason, why don't you put a button on top of this?
Yeah, I think it touches the falsehoods that are pervasive in these discussions. Also fail to account for another important point, which is that what do you define as good AI? A lot of people out there think that AI means it's a qualitative argument, right? Like, oh, the recommendations, the ability to categorize products is going to be better than what a person could do. And that's the wrong way to look at it. The way to look at it is that it lets you do it so much more of it, so much faster for so many more products that there is no other way to improve that many products. If you are a distributor and you're carrying 2 to 3 million SKUs and you're selling them on a website that has hundreds of thousands of pages, and you're selling those to tens of thousands of customers who have hundreds of applications for these products, the math just doesn't add up. It just doesn't work. So the power of AI is not in helping you make better decisions for your best-selling products. It's helping organizations raise the bar on the entire experience at scale in a way that just wasn't possible before.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I don't know how you can do this theoretically without some sort of, AI component, because of the sheer numbers are insane. But let's give Doug and Faisal an opportunity to tell us where we're wrong. Doug?
Well, the one thing I keep thinking of when I hear Jason talk, with all due respect, is how many times have my fellow marketing practitioners here on the panel and out there in TV land been promised the easy button by the sales guy. Everybody look up who Jason works for, right? He's selling. He's selling you the easy button. Come on, wait till the sales engineers come in and tell you how it really works. It'll be a mess. You'll be an implementation forever. Your people won't know what's going on. You'll be collecting data, and someday when the hype wears off, yes, you might be able to use it.
Well, Faisal, I think you need to be more outspoken than Doug on this one. So why don't you bring it to a conclusion here?
All I'm going to say is I think Jason and Brooke needs to change their clocks because they're already in 2030 and we're still in 2022. So, let's just do that first and then we'll get back on track.
Well, on that note, I think we've ended round one, Brian. Yeah. So let's go back to you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Well, that was a great debate, all, and thank you for that. I think we need to pull up our poll question here, and here it is. Is AI and B2B today more real or hype? Real or hype? Go ahead and place your votes. You have 2 minutes there. Andy, it's interesting. I agree with Team Evolutionary here, obviously, as you know. I mean, I think Faisal made a good point. I mean, the data has to be there. Doug, the fundamentals. You and I spend a lot of time, Andy, going around talking to B2B companies, and this, AI holds promise. But let's be realistic about all this. I mean, a lot of these companies are at ground zero with regard to their data, with regard to their fundamentals of e-commerce. I think, and particularly as we think about, we've got distributors on our both sides of our discussion today. Those are big catalog sizes, right? So, I mean, personally coming out of e-commerce, having product catalogs, on the retail side where I was running e-commerce, big catalogs, that there's site search and personalization, product recommendations, things like that AI can help with those things. But I think that is the state of AI today in B2B commerce. I think it really starts with that. And I go back to what Michael Vax said, one of our industry experts who commented on our LinkedIn. He said, most B2B companies can get better returns by focusing on simpler personalization techniques and buying patterns of each customer. What equipment do they have? What consumables do they need? You don't need AI for, some of these things, because companies are not even doing that. If I think about manufacturers in particular with a limited product catalog, you got people in the mix here who can do some of the things that, AI can do. I think it may change a bit with distributors with big catalogs, but go ahead, Andy, what do you think?
Yeah. Do you see as a MapQuest map, Brian? Or do you use GPS?
I print my directions. I'm kidding. All right.
By the way, does your car have safety features that assist on it? Why don't you just look over your shoulder? You could just do that.
Is this an automotive on webinar or something? Am I on the wrong program here?
The point is, it's very easy for people to say put the word just in front of it. You can just do this. You can just do that. That's oftentimes an argument for not evolving. Pun intended. It is the case that there are these technologies. Sometimes they're newer. And here's the scary part. Sometimes they require you to think differently about your business processes, and they're not going to fit. I'm reminded of the story of the electric engine. When it first was invented, they tried to replace the steam engine with the electric engine. And guess what difference it made? None. because they took them a while to figure out that the electric engine could project power over distance, whereas the steam, everybody had to be right next to the steam engine. So it required people to think differently, but nobody's going back to steam engines now.
All right. Well, these are good arguments. We got to get to round 2 here. So let's go. Ready, Robert? Here. All right. It's time for round 2. Ring the bell. Thank you, sir. All right. This round is mine. Andy, you keep time for us, please?
Got it.
All right. We're going to talk about, this is Andy Hoare's favorite topic. Is AI going to replace physical salespeople? Is this the death of a salesperson? I have my opinions, but let's hear from our panelists. What's better for customers and business, an omniscient AI or an experienced salesperson? And we're going to go to team revolutionary first. Mr. Borg, what say you, sir?
I'm just glad I'm on Andy's team for this one. Obviously, the omniscient AI is a better deal, not just because here's who's gonna die. Which salesmen are going to die? It's going to be the ones who don't add value. The order takers, the operational checking up on a proof of delivery. There's no value add there. Salespeople don't want to do that. What an omniscient AI can do is it can actually take a lot of that busy work, right? The orders that are replacement orders, and then add a little frosting on top of it. Add a couple extra lines to the order, a couple extra bucks to the order that's actually relevant. Again, it's not about quality. It's about the ability to scale to be able to handle so many SKUs for so many customers across so many applications. If Brian, if you want to go out and hire 1.5 million salespeople for your company to do that degree of targeting, you, my friend, are more than welcome. I will short your stock.
Fair enough. Okay. Very good. Let's go over to Team Evolutionary. I think Doug and Fossil, you all will probably not agree here. Maybe Doug, you want to comment first?
Yeah, I absolutely disagree. The most wonderful thing in B2B is having a live salesperson. Sure, there's some mundane transactions. Where's my order tracking? None of that's AI, by the way. That's just, come on, that was 1996. I launched it. FedEx tracking. Simple stuff can be done by machines. Sure, but it's not AI, right? We need good salespeople. Look, we're talking to one another here. Why are we doing that? Because we're adding value, and only we can do that. Machines can't yet. Someday, maybe, not today.
Okay. And Fossil, what do you say, sir?
Yeah, I don't think we have to go to the extreme of death here. I think one of the key things that we forget, whether it's AI or machine learning or augmented reality, you can bring all the fancy words on the table. It's the trust of the customer, right? Mm-hmm. And you gain trust by doing a hybrid. In B2B, it's always going to be a hybrid. I'm sorry, in the next 20 years, is you enable your salespeople or customer service with the data that they can inform your customer to be better, right? Now, whether that's AI or machine learning or just simple systems processing through services, that's where the key is going to be for you. Because if you lose the trust, right, you're going to lose the customer. It doesn't matter how fancy your engine is.
That's interesting. We're getting a couple comments in here from the audience. So Charles Barlow said, AI certainly works for Amazon and some of their sellers, but is there room for both AI and human interaction, which is the point you just made, Fossil? And then Stephen Javor from Schneider just said, hey, AI should be a tool for the solution salesperson. Interesting. Which gets to our next question. Can AI make salespeople more effective? I'm going to go to Team Evolutionary first. Doug, let's hear from you on this one. What do you think?
I haven't seen it. Right? There's a lot of promise. There's a lot of hype. I haven't seen it. Plain and simple. Let's see. Yes, okay. No answer. No.
I agree with Doug. It's in the preliminary stages because remember, B2B is catching up to the B2C, as Andy pointed out, is one of his slides, right? More B2B customers are looking for the B2C. So we're catching up on the customer experience, which is the clickstream: search, buy, browse, add to cart, checkout, and post-transaction. Now, what has been missed is the associate experience because B2C doesn't require that, right? You just interact, self-service, add to cart, and go. In B2B, you need the salesperson, you need the customer service rep, you need the solutions salesperson, field sales, manufacturing plant. So for that specificity, you need to be hand in hand with the customer. That's key. The other thing, one of the comments of the chat I would like to comment on is the amount of research and investment that goes into Amazon, Apple, Google, right? Most B2B companies their entire P&L doesn't even match that. So we'll have to take smaller chunks, do proof of concepts, and then evolve as a company by doing that, right? And the skill set is not there. We all know, right? It's hard. So it's catching up plus building experiences, gaining trust, adoption, and then AI and ML.
Interesting. And keep the questions coming, folks, from the audience. These are great, and we'll address as many as we can. Thank you. So what Brooke, what about you? I mean, can what examples are there? Can AI actually make salespeople more effective?
Yeah, absolutely. It can. And I have seen it, right? We have built tools in the past to really arm our salespeople with the data that they need. And even before my current role at HD Supply, it was something that was happening day in, day out, right? Salespeople are really phenomenal at building relationships, right? And a great complement to the AI. But guys, use your resources efficiently. No salesperson wants to dig through historical data and trends to say, hey guys, I see you were buying a lot more of this category from us last year. Why has that changed? Or, hey, you know what? You're really underpenetrated in this category against other customers like you. Really great conversations for the salesperson to have, but all surfaced by the AI, right? It's analyzing the data and doing the math, I think to your point, at scale, that the best salesperson out there does not have the time to do, and they don't want to do.
Great point, Brooke. But is that really AI or Borg? Is that just, great spreadsheet skills? Come on.
Exactly.
What's AI here? How does AI apply to this?
Because as I've said multiple times, it's if you want to build a spreadsheet to cover your 2 million SKUs and your 10,000 customers across your 100,000 pages, and just you think you're going to create a pivot table that's going to dump that out, my friend, I think you don't. I think you are too trusting of Excel. It just can't scale. Again, we're all saying the same thing. Everybody understands the value that salespeople bring. We're not saying that they can't bring value, but we're saying is we have to equip them with not just the data. We need to analyze that, distill it down, and give them the information, the knowledge, and the wisdom to get insights from that data in a way that they can very quickly turn around and make and show that expertise that customers want to see. The only way to do that at scale is with AI.
Interesting. What about Jason, the manufacturer who has 300 products, not 2 million products? Can it be as effective there?
Absolutely, it can. I mean, it all has to do, it's all a scale, it's all a matter of proportion, right? So the thing about manufacturers is manufacturers' products tend to be much more narrowly differentiated than distributors, right? Distributors, the issue is how do I cover breadth and diversity of product? Whereas manufacturers, it's about how do I help this customer understand that this particular product has a very subtle difference and this is the material impact it's going to have on their business. So even though the SKU selection is smaller, the points of differentiation are also smaller. And so the complexity stays at about the same level.
Interesting. Troublemaker, haymaker, we're just about up on time. Is there any points you wanted to refute here from the other side? Doug, you said you look like you wanted to say something.
I was agreeing with your Excel point, and the million rows and 5 million columns that Jason said you might need. Come on, when's the last time anybody actually saw one of those? That's not the reality. If you're trying to figure out where a sales rep is underpenetrated a certain product set, a certain territory, come on, you don't even need Excel for that. That's a Salesforce report. Boom, you got it.
All right. Okay. With that, we're going to go to our poll question. Let's go ahead and pull that up, Robert, if we can. So here's our question. We're talking about AI and will it replace salespeople? Will it replace it? You go ahead and have 2 minutes. You have yes or no as your answer. Andy, what did you think of that round?
That was very meaty, actually. And I always love, as you said, I love to have my conversation about death of a B2B salesman. But Jason's completely right about this. The low value added sales activities are disappearing. The scary part is that's a lot of sales activity. It really is. This idea that every salesperson is just waiting for the right information. They're going to be these humanoid, super duper salespeople who are just waiting to be told, all the greatest information. It's just not real. It's not real. We know,
Yeah.
and salespeople do what they do well, which is build relationships. Brooke mentioned that earlier. They're great at doing that. But this other stuff has got to be powered by something else. And yes, maybe Jason is providing an example about, that doesn't really exist, where people are going to have pivot tables for this. But you'd be surprised how many companies I talk to who are still using spreadsheets for a lot of this stuff. And they don't even attempt to go after the long tail in their SKU and their catalog because they're just incapable of it. So it isn't as much an unreality as you might imagine. I also thought there were some great points here too about people. I think Faisal made this point. Yeah, you may have the technology, but you don't have the people. It's not going to work. So when you're thinking about AI, you have to be thinking about people as well. And I'm a big fan of the fact that at some point, especially if you're doing consultative selling, I think that's less selling and more customer service.
Interesting. Yeah, so I guess Jason's arguing that maybe Amazon's going to take over the world with their AI. I think he actually, if we challenge Mr. Borg on that, he might have some qualification on that. But I mean, look, Amazon has thousands of engineers working on their AI, A9 algorithms, and there are 3 billion products on Amazon, and so if this is that's the world. We're going to, if AI is going to control it, they're certainly in a good position. But I think that actually presents the ultimate example Amazon does of why salespeople are needed.
Brian, you know what? Computers used to fill the size of a sporting an arena, right? They don't anymore. I have one on my watch. I'm a watch.
Okay.
Right? So
okay. All right.
It's faster than people recognize.
All right, fair enough. Well, we got to get to our next round, so stick around and let's go to round 3. All right, now it's time. Let's ring the bell. Here it comes. I'm keeping time, Andy. This one's yours.
Yeah, so the theme of this one is, does AI have a sweet spot? I think we've been talking a little bit about this. Maybe people don't think it applies everywhere, but it certainly doesn't apply nowhere. So the question is, where exactly does it apply? And the first question is this: can AI really understand buying intent and generate levels of loyalty that weren't possible before? This is interesting. I think people who are deep in AI are recognizing that there's some new stuff that this is able to produce, insights potentially, that just weren't humanly possible before, because the computing power, the data access, the connections that weren't there. So let's go to Team Evolutionary. And Sir's going to totally disagree with this. But Faisal, what is your thought on this? Is AI going to be able to produce insights we couldn't have before, or some other people write that it's more than we need?
Yeah, so I think we're not there yet, right? It will in future, but right now we're seeing that in pockets. I think AI is playing a massive role in the logistics area. We know that for sure, right? In the prediction of inventory and the logistics. When are you going to get the product? But guess what? You depend on the UPS and the FedExes and the DHLs of the world, and they're already using that AI to give you that information, right? But the playground for the right price, the right product, and when am I going to get it? It's already there, right? How do you take that to the B2B customer? When I have a freight, right? I have 15 pallets of metal that I need to get to like 2 of my distribution centers so that I can make what I want to make. How do you do that? It's not going to be UPS or FedEx. I mean, the challenge still exists because your freight forwarders are not sophisticated enough. So do you go and do backward integration and enable them, right? Another example, Tesla, right? They're still struggling between autopilot versus full self-driving, which is in beta, 11 is coming out, and autonomous, right? Who are the guinea pigs? People who started driving the Teslas, buying the Teslas, and they gave all that data. Still today, I think Tesla is at the forefront of AI. Elon is doing that. The entire the car runs on machine learning and AI, doing the software computation, right? So we're not there yet. I'm not disagreeing that AI is not the future. Yes, it is. But there is reality versus practicality versus dollars and investments and the skill sets you need. How many data scientists can you hire today? So the market is really hot. It's always going to be, and it's going to get it's going to shrink from a skill set standpoint.
Well, Doug, I think I know what your answer is going to be on this one, but why don't you enlighten us?
Sure, it'll be real short and sweet. It's a shiny tool, right? It's a new shiny tool. We haven't learned to use the good tools that we have today in general as marketing technology practitioners. Let's not reach for that shiny tool that sure, maybe 2033, 2055, our kids will be using it, what have you. But today, let's stick with the fundamentals. Let's use the tools that work. We'll save data. Of course, Brooke, we're going to be capturing data. AI will be out there someday.
So Jason, let's get your response to this. But I'm thinking as Doug was talking that I wonder if this is the same thing that the people who had the horse and buggies would say, hey, let's stick with the horse and buggy. That car thing, that's years and years away. But what do you think?
Yeah, there's that apocryphal quote. If Henry Ford had asked his customers what they wanted, he would have said they wanted a faster horse. The truth about this is that, fundamentally what customers really want from a B2B seller at any level is they want to talk to somebody who knows what the heck they're doing. They know the product, they know the applications. The only way you're going to create a digital experience, an authentic, expertise-driven experience, is to be able to deploy AI across the selection customer application base so that you can equip not just your website to be able to make appropriate recommendations. I mean, how many times have you bought a big screen TV from somebody and then the next week in their recommendations, they give you more big screen TVs? Like, it's that level of thoughtlessness about how you deploy recommendations, ones that's driven by manual people and not an AI, that results in customers developing a distrust of you and your expertise. AI helps you overcome that at scale.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I remember the old days of collaborative filtering. People buy these things. I'm like, well, I don't buy those things. Maybe other people do, but what about me?
Yeah,
So
it's how specific is the other people, right?
Yeah.
Is it humans buy it? Or is it somebody with my job doing my kind of project in my part of the world?
Well, Jason, humanity buys it. That's the answer. So, Brooke, what do you get in on this as well? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, back to the question, like, can you really generate loyalty through AI? Absolutely. Yes, you can. I mean, I think you mentioned it, Andy, and like I was saying earlier, a continued example of this is really showcasing insights to your customers, right? And that is how you build a relationship, and they feel like they have a relationship with you, even if it's a digital you and not a physical you, right? But when you're that helpful to your customer, whether that is through really intelligent product directs at scale or insights to run their business or whatever, you're helpful, you get loyalty, bottom line.
So, Brooke, let's stick with you on this one because I want to ask the next question and just bleed right into it. People have suggested that, especially if you have a really long tail in your catalog, that there are things on that long tail that, for example, sales reps don't even know about, right?
Yeah.
Customers don't know about. In fact, companies hardly know about. What are your thoughts on whether AI could actually activate long tail selling or accelerate it?
Yeah, it's really the perfect scenario for AI, right? Because as a business, as a salesperson, whoever, you're going to get the most bang for your buck out of focusing on your really core assortment. It reminds me of every time I go visit a distribution center, you're kind of walking around and you're like, oh, I didn't know we sold that. Or I didn't know we sold this other thing. Right. So it's how you do that, finding in a digital way, right? It might show you a complementary assortment. It's certainly going to show you the SKU that you're looking for, but hugely helpful in surfacing that long tail and products that your customers and your sales team may not even realize you have.
Jason, do you agree with that? Do you walk around the warehouse and go, wow, we didn't even know we had this?
Are you kidding? I used to get lost in McMaster's warehouse when I was working there at the start, just constantly being surprised by what we sold. I mean, it's the truth. Like, you've only got so much time to spend with your customers, as Brian is reinforcing for me. So you need to really make sure that time you get to spend is valuable, that what you're serving up as a recommendation is the most relevant thing for that customer at that time in that application. And AI is just a much more efficient, in the long run, much less costly way of doing that than to try to build out a massive team of humans.
So, Faisal and Doug, let's get you both to get a quick thought on this. What do you think about AI in the long tail, or not relevant?
I don't see it as relevant today. I don't see it as relevant. And I'd just like to remind the folks out there, when's the last time you interacted with an AI application was probably a chatbot. How well did that go? Right? Until you finally said, agent, 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 I need to speak with someone. Get me out of this chatbot. That's AI today.
So Faisal, did you end up in chatbot hell, or what would you say about this?
Yeah, so it happens most of the time. But I think the premise of long tail is around relevancy in SEO. That's where your journey starts. You have long tail so people can Google search you and your relevancy of your organization remains there. And then somehow you click there and you end up in that SKU, which you didn't know that this company was selling. So yes, I sort of agree. But then when you are in that journey, why would you buy that? Because you have other 5 or 6 things, right? That's not core for you.
Well, Andy, we're up on time. I think we need to go over our poll question. Guys, thank you very much. That was a good debate. Let's bring up our poll. All right. Is AI going to achieve breakthrough status with regard to personalizing buying experiences within the next 5 years? Yes or no? Place your votes now, and we'll get back to it. Get back to you at the end here and reveal the results. Now, Andy, I thought, I mean, this isn't, we talk about fundamental changes of the relationship. I don't think AI is a change of the relationship. I think it can actually reinforce the relationship if done well. But I mean, I think a lot of, the Borg's example, the TV, right, and presenting more TVs. I mean, look, he made the argument himself. AI, the data has to be there. And I think that if, foundationally, Faisal's first point in this whole thing, your data's got to be there. If it's not there, it's not going to be effective, even if you have a great tool. I think Doug made a good point too about, listen, you got to get the fundamentals right first, right? And the chatbot, et cetera. So example, et cetera. So, I do think where it can be a game changer though, Andy, is with new business models, right? And we think about marketplaces, we think about new ways to go to market, et cetera. And I also think that we've heard a lot from the distribution side, where I think there is potentially an argument for AI. But I guess if I'm a manufacturer sitting here, I'm not yet convinced it's here. But anyway, what did you think?
Yeah, I would just I think Faisal made an interesting point. I want to build on it to make maybe a better point. Is he said that Tesla is struggling with the autopilot capability. Let's call that B2C for a moment. But look at these companies that have autopiloted trucks that can do long haul. Driving through Nevada or Montana, you don't need to have a person watching the steering wheel. And by the way, humans are a lot less effective than software would be. So I think that might be the advantage. That might be an example of like the B2B equivalent here. So I think it's application specific. And I think we've talked a little bit about AI, yes or no, good or evil, up or down. But I think it's fair to say that there's some very real opportunities for using AI. And I'm not going to let this one go about buying intent, because to Jason's point, I don't know what alternative there is to understand somebody's buying intent. And as Jason pointed out, I think he's totally right about this. You can't just group a bunch of people together. There has to be something that really works. It has to be unique to that person and at scale. I don't know of anything else other than AI that's going to be able to accomplish that.
Right. So I hear at scale a lot from everybody here. And I'll concede that at scale, yes. I think, though, then when we start thinking about more directed, specific use cases where it's a highly complex piece of equipment, there's a limited product assortment, that human interaction is going to be really, really important. So I think we need to move over now to our closing arguments. So we're going to bring Mr. Borg back on here to make a closing argument. Here is Jason. Jason, you have 2 minutes for your closing, sir.
Yeah, I think it is. I don't think there's any question that, like, up until this point, AI has been a lot of experimentation. There have been successes, there have been failures. The biggest example, though, of why I think that right now is a differentiating point is we're sort of at that point in the early aughts when Google had leapt out in front and started gathering data about what people are searching for and what they're clicking on. Right? They started that training data and that process happening. Microsoft came in and tried to build its own. They threw a ton of money at it. They tried to catch up, but there is no catching up. This is the reality. I used to be an advocate of it's all software. You can always buy better software later. But the difference with AI is not just software. It's software that is coupled with a large set of learnings coming from training data. And that is something that you can't buy.
You're arguing, Jason, that people need to get started now if they want to be the winners in a few years, right? With AI. So
start learning to swim if you don't want to drown. Yes.
Right. What's interesting, I mean, you're talking about data, and data really, that's a theme that's emerged consistently here. You have to start learning and getting data now. Got it. Okay. Well, thank you, Jason, for your closing argument. We appreciate that. Andy, I think it's about time for the decision. I love that. All right, everyone, stay tuned because we've got some cool stuff coming. But before we get to the actual votes that we had today, I have a couple of key, kind of takeaways I was jotting down as people were talking here, Andy, but what were your thoughts? What are some of your takeaways from this debate? It's a really
I think in the interest of time, because I don't want to steal from our announcement at the end, why don't you just go with yours? I think I've kind of made my points clear, but why don't you share yours and we'll go to the polling.
Well, I think one thing that emerged for me is, in hearing the arguments today, is that you've got to make sure you have the fundamentals of e-commerce in place before you're, as a starting point, before you're going. And, I have these concept of stages of maturity, Andy, in my book, where I talk about 5 stages of digital maturity. And, most companies that I talk to are in stage 2, right? They have maybe some e-commerce or they have a content website up. There's still a lot of companies that don't even have e-commerce, period. So I think number one, you got to realistically assess where you are, in your journey, and where AI. I heard Jason's arguments about getting started sooner rather than later for the future. But I do think actually AI is here in certain cases. All right, so I will concede that if you have a large product catalog, if you're a distributor, you're trying to optimize at scale. There are some things that where AI can be helpful: product search, product recommendations, et cetera, making the buyer's job sort of more efficient. I'm not convinced though that we're there with highly complex, sales processes where there's a lot of consultation required. And frankly, I don't think this is a recipe to avoid some of the down and dirty merchandising work that your web teams need to be doing. Web merchandising. What is that? To B2B, that's a brand new term. And if you don't know what it means, you got bigger problems. So we should talk about that. But if you're going to implement AI, the other thing I didn't hear a lot about today, but I want to encourage our listeners to look for is the KPIs. What are you trying to measure for when you implement AI? I have this case study in my book, Andy, talking about a company called Illumina. And Illumina uses KPIs such as share of wallet. And they introduced AI. By the way, it can work. And these are complex pieces of equipment. But when they implemented it, they knew what they were after. So I think that's part of it too, is what is the tangible results? If you're looking at your conversion rate online, how effective your sales team is and where they're spending their time. Are you taking some load off their plate with AI tools? And then, the share of wallet from the customer. Illumina was citing 160% increases in share of wallet from rolling out AI solutions. Now they got the fundamentals right first, folks. So again, to my first point.
Yeah, but you didn't mention one really important one, which is customer satisfaction, which if you ascribe to the idea that AI can create a level of loyalty and customer satisfaction, heretofore not possible, the only way you're going to know is if you actually do it. And I think that's my only comment about this is that AI is an iterative process, and you can't just say, we're going to do it, and then if it doesn't work, we're going to throw it away. I think it's one of these things that creates its own value as you do it.
Yeah. And I think exactly. And I think that is actually one of the other metrics they use. So thanks for pointing that out, Andy. Okay. So I know we have a few announcements to make. So let's go ahead and get to our answers of our poll question. Reveal that first. Is AI in B2B today more real or hype? Real, 68%, hype, 32%. Congratulations, Andy. That was a good win for you. Okay. Borg and Lights Out are celebrating. Okay. What about our next question? Will AI replace salespeople? No. All right. Good job, Troublemaker and Haymaker. Woohoo! Excellent. Good work. Good work. All right. Now,
intense interest in this question.
Is it. Let's count down to the last question. Who's going to win? Breakthrough. Oh.
It is.
All right, you win, Andy. You win. Oh, guys, we tried, but Haymaker, Troublemaker, we didn't make the argument strong enough. Our audience doesn't agree with us completely.
One serious point here about this is somebody told me a long time ago, as a technologist guy, that people tend to overestimate what's going to happen in 3 years and underestimate what's going to happen in 7 years. If you think about what's happened in the last 10 years, all right, it's incredible. In the last 15 years, since really the iPhone came to exist, I think people are now thinking in shorter time frames, and they used to think, oh, that's going to be decades away. Now they're thinking maybe it isn't.
Yeah, well, it's the speed of innovation, and yeah, I think people have to think, be thinking forward about these things. So, and yes, the Borg, you are undefeated. Congratulations, sir. He's 2-0. My goodness. All right. We're excited. And thank you, Andy. It was a great debate today. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, it was great. Wonderful. We'll see you guys next month.